Hello, everybody. So we're gonna get right into it this time around. So Flacco was 27 of 39 in this game for only 186 yards, a 4.8 average per attempt. He had one touchdown, no pick, which a little bit surprised me here. He was sacked 5 yards, and he was sacked 5 times for a total of 42 yards. My bad. And then he had a QBR of 15.2 and 88.2, and his yardage total goes down to 144 when you factor in the sack yards. Whew. And then we go into the carries and the running backs that they had. Alex Collins, he led their team in both yards and carries with 10 for 30. He had a 3.0 average with no touchdowns, and he had a long of 8. Javorius Allen, he had 6 carries for 20 yards, a 3.3 average, and obviously no touchdowns there. No one ran for a touchdown in this game outside of Murray. But Campanaro, the receiver, he had to go to some trickeration. They got 19-yard run out of it, and that was the only time he carried the ball. Flacco and Vince Male also carried the ball each one time, got no yards each time, and then Chris Moore got -5 yards, and that brings the grand total of 20 rushes for 64 yards allowed by this Minnesota Vikings defense and a 3.2 yards per carry. Ultimately, we like to see that. That's very good. It looks like this defense not only got extremely good in the run, like it is vastly improved in run defense. And receiving, their leader was Benjamin Watson. He had 5 receptions, 38 yards, a 7.6 average, and his longest pass that he caught was 20 yards. That's it. So I say we're doing pretty well for ourselves when their leading receiver only has 38 yards. They're sub 40. And Chris Moore was our second leading receiver with 2 receptions for 36 yards on 8 targets. He also had the touchdown late. Campanaro had 3 receptions for 31 yards on only 3 targets. Javorius Allen actually had 8 receptions for 29 yards on 11 targets. That's an impressive stat line for this, mainly for the Viking defense. Like, I wouldn't think Allen would go around boasting this. And then going just down the line, Griff Whalen, 4 receptions, 23 yards, 6 targets. Nick Boyle had 3 targets, 2 receptions on those 3 targets, and 12 yards. Mike Wallace, obviously, he was knocked out of the game real early. The unnecessary roughness, 15 yards, all that good stuff. And so only 1 reception on 1 target for that 9 yards. And then Bobby Rainey Jr. had 2 receptions for 8 yards, even though he has a long of 12, which brings it down to basically allowing what Flacco threw for, which is 186 yards on the 27 catches. And then we go over to our guys. Keenum, 20 of 31, 188 yards, 6.1 average, no touchdowns, a pick. He took no sacks, and then the QBR was 69.8, and his quarterback rating, 67.7. So I will touch base on Keenum a little bit later. So we're going to keep on going down. Murray actually did something this game. He had 18 carries for 113 yards, a 6.3 average, and a touchdown with a long of 35. He did something. And McKinnon, he had 14 carries for 47 yards, a 3.4 yards per carry average. Keenum carried the ball 1 time for 9 yards, and that brings the team total up to 33 rushes for 169 yards and a 5.1 average with, obviously, the 1 touchdown. And then receiving gets a little weird, because if you told me coming into this game that our leading receiver would be Jarius Wright, I would not believe you, but that's exactly what ended up happening here. And he had 3 receptions for 54 yards and 18-yard average on his catches. Obviously no touchdowns because Keenum didn't throw one. And he had a long of 30, and he also had 2 very good diving 3rd down catches. So, yeah, it's a little surprising that he's been phased out of the offense a bit unless something happens injury-wise. And Rudolph is second on the team today with 5 receptions for 43 yards and 8.6 average. Thielen had 5 receptions for 41 and 8.2 average on him. Treadwell had 3 receptions for 28 and 9.3 average. And it appears Treadwell works in threes, whether it's good or bad, it will be 3 receptions almost, it seems. And then you had C.J. Ham on that one screen pass early-ish in the ball game that went for 12 yards. And then McKinnon had 3 receptions for 10 yards. And that kind of comes down for all the stats for the most part. They did do an ugly win. They did what they were supposed to do. And like I said, special teams was huge because Sherrills had 103 total return yards today when you combine punt and kick return. He had 83 punt return yards, 20 on the kick return. So, yeah, field position was pretty decent for the most part, at least when they were punting the ball. And then Forbath, 6 for 6 on the field goals. He actually accounted for 18 of our points. So you can't really be mad at that part, but what you can't be mad about is the one extra point that continues to plague Kai Forbath. He's very consistent unless you put him at that 15-yard line. I don't know why. I really think that's just a mental thing at this point, and he really needs to get over that. But if these ugly wins are more than likely to continue, judging how this team is built, especially as long as Case Keenum's at the helm, and honestly, like switching over to the defensive side, is this the best version of Barr that we've seen thus far? Because I know 2016, he kind of starting to think that was kind of an injury to him that wasn't really let out to the public, because he is flying to the ball. He is everywhere, it appears. So I really think this could be the best Barr that we've seen, and I think he's kind of the key cog that makes this defense either elite or just very good. So the fact that he's playing at this level is kind of why we see all this run defense upgrade, pretty much, I think. It's Anthony Barr, essentially. And this is what I meant by we would be going back to Case Keenum, because we need either Teddy Bridgewater or Bradford to come back. If we're relying on Case Keenum to throw for 30 to 40 times a game, like he did not throw for 200 yards. He threw for a 6.1 yards per attempt average. That's really not good. We were upset about Bradford throwing for like 7.2 or something like that last year, and he's 6.1. That's a full yard under. So he obviously had the pick. It felt like he was kind of aiming the ball rather than trying to throw to an actual spot on time. It felt like he kind of just wanted to throw to this guy and this guy only, and it didn't look good, let's say that, because it felt like it was okay when you kind of simplify things for Case Keenum. Once you tell him to become the actual NFL quarterback that he's supposed to be, doesn't work. So we need either Teddy or Sam to come back, and my money's on Teddy coming back before Sam Bradford. I actually think that's how we make room for Teddy Bridgewater. Sam Bradford gets put on IR. I think that's more than likely. And sticking on the offensive side to the next point, Latavius Murray. Now, Murray did have 113 yards and that touchdown with a 6.3 average. Now, he actually showed burst today, which it was kind of missing, even though I know a lot of you guys probably knew he ran the 4.38, but when we signed him, maybe that was one of the hype points. I would think it would be, since it's kind of impressive that he's 6'3", 230, 235-ish, and he runs that fast. And I think today was the first day that we saw any of that burst, and he did have that ankle surgery. So that maybe it's finally getting along, maybe. And one thing I do want to point out, if you take away the 29 and the 35-yard runs, he only has 49 yards with a 3.0 average. So it's not like this was consistent. He kind of broke off the bigger plays, which for me personally, I take the consistency over the bigger plays. So if someone's more consistent, I'd rather have them in there, because it says 6.3 yards per carry, but it's not like he's getting like 4 to 6 every time. It's more like he's going to get bottled, and then every once in a while he'll break a bigger one. So I still think like this is a tandem, and as long as we're surviving with Case Keenum, like I'm okay whether it's McKinnon or Murray having the big game for us, or actually, because the running game is very important to this team, because you have to keep the defense off of the field, otherwise they just get tired out. We saw what happened last year with them. They were just constantly being 3-and-out on offense because we couldn't do anything whatsoever, and that just eventually wore out the defense. So we need the running game, and I think that's part of what happened today because we had time of possession. Like, I think we won that like 32 minutes to 27 minutes, if I'm correct. I believe so. I did not write that one down. But yeah. So we need to actually get more consistent on that, and I think just seeing that explosive burst kind of later in the game, that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, even though this defense is like it's notoriously a good front, but they're ranked like 30th in rush defense, which I went over in my preview of this game. So it's not the best running defense, and I think we need to see it again next week in London against the Browns. So, and then Isadora came in for one of the injuries on the offensive line, which is Jeremiah Searles. Personally, I think Isadora played a whole lot better than Searles, and I really think Isadora should be the starter, and I felt like that way since pretty much I've seen all three of them play since preseason. And I don't think that's going to change because honestly, when Isadora entered the game, we started seeing the more explosive runs happen. So, a coincidence? Maybe, but. And then you have the other injury that is much, much more significant, which was Riley Reef leaving the game for a knee injury. So, and Zimmer said after the game, they are fine and they are not serious injuries. So, this could either mean one of two things. One, they're actually fine. Like he said that for both of these guys, that they're not serious and that they will be fine in the very short term future. And that's one. We hope it's that one. And there's the other one where Zimmer says they're fine and then they're really out for the year because that's how that works sometimes with him. And I don't know why. Because Bradford always gets better every day. And then, Chicago, he can't move. And then he re-aggravated his knee injury, which I don't think was ever not aggravated. So, and then obviously we have the Sharif Floyd thing from last year. And I'm really hoping it's just the first one. I'm pretty sure it is, as Reef was listed as questionable. So to end the game. So I think he was mainly kept out just because the game was in hand. So I'm pretty sure he will be back. And is that experiment over? Because I'm starting to not really see much there. He's not that fast. He can't get the separation. He's mistiming his jump. I get he's a good blocker, but at times Baltimore just had one corner on him, and they just didn't even help him. So it was almost taking like one half of the field just because our receiver is so ineffective. It's almost like having Rhodes against him pretty much every play just because of how ineffective as a receiver he is. So when we start seeing Diggs and Floyd come back in instead of Treadwell, maybe we start using Jarius Wright just because he's so much more effective than Treadwell is. And I think that was proven today as Treadwell 28 yards on 3 receptions. Jarius Wright 3 receptions, 54 yards. So if you give it some contrast, maybe we need to start making that switch and just deem Treadwell as not very good. So, and I still think we need a third running back. Like this team, like I'm very adamant about this because I do not trust our 2 running backs, and well, I guess CJ Ham, but I view CJ Ham as a worse version of Latavius Murray. So, as a running back anyway. And running backs get dinged up all the time. We have 2 running backs. We need a third back. We have so many receivers, just top to down, and I just don't know if, like, I know they don't want to cut Coley or Adams for just the purpose of, I don't know if they don't think they might get them back on the practice squad, but seriously, like, I feel like we do need a third running back on this team, and I don't know who it would be, but I do think we need at least another body in there. But I would still love for you guys to comment on things and all that good stuff. So please do remember to like, comment, and share this video if you do ever so please. You can start following me on Brian_Spadafora on Twitter.com, and I will be back shortly with another video. Until then, I bid you adieu.